All right, welcome back to another edition of Scaling Secrets podcast. I am your host, Alex Mahaz, and today we have a true special guest joining us. He is no other than Michael Hinshaw, the founder and president of customer experience consultancy MCork CX. With dozens of total global CX influencers under his belt, Michael is a true expert in the field. He's also a best-selling author and having a co-author to his book, Smart Customers, Stupid Companies, and his new book, Experience Rules, coming out soon. So as we dive into the world of customer experience with the one and only Michael, let's all give him a warm welcome. How you doing, Michael?
That's great. I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Alex. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to dive into your journey with your company and your entrepreneurship journey as well. But I want to get right into it. Obviously, you've had the opportunity to work with some major companies like Microsoft, Intel, Best Buy, and these are really fast growing startups as well. So how have you seen customer experience principles play a big role in building marketing demanding companies?
Yeah. A couple of things. I might start. I'll just give like a 20-second background for I've been customer experience consulting for about 20 years now. And I actually started this journey in the very late 90s where a private equity company asked me to help them build a business in a country I knew a little about, in an industry I knew absolutely nothing about. And I went into that I had a marketing background, went into that market to really understand where's the pain, right? Where is this particular market, grain trading specifically, make it easier or hard for various participants, for farmers, for brokers and traders, for truck drivers, for manufacturers of fertilizer, things of that nature. So long story short, I was able to see where the issues were in that ecosystem, identify where the opportunities were, and build a business around that. And essentially what I did was I applied, not knowing at the time, customer experience principles to finding an opportunity in the market and grew the business to about $300 million in about 3 years. Largest independent grain trading company in Canada after that period of time. And I took time off early 2000s, and having spent a bunch of time away from my kids, decided to start a consulting firm for a year or two. And now a couple of decades later, here I am. So understanding what customer needs are gives you a real on-ramp to pretty phenomenal growth.
Definitely. And obviously, there's a lot of challenges too when you're, scaling, any industry, but I'm sure within that industry as well. Can you just talk about those early days? What were some of those challenges that you really, struggled with in the beginning, and how did you, overcome those challenges?
Yeah. I think, there was definitely from a market perspective, having somebody come in from the outside was an issue because things have been done a certain way for a very long time. They've been done that way for what seemed like really good reasons. But we see this in companies of all sizes, small, medium, large, fast growth, or hoping to maintain market share, where they've been doing things the way that they were originally designed to be done, rather than doing things based on what can actually accelerate their relationships with their customers. And whether that's, pre-sale, right, in the awareness and acquisition phases of a life cycle, or importantly, if it's in retention, where you're actually using customer success and other tools as service, product, et cetera, to get closer to your customers, it's worth understanding what those gaps are so you can close them. And ultimately, what we were able to do, we were able to make a more compelling pitch to the market based on a deeper understanding of the customer, not so much a deeper understanding than other established players had, but we were able to look at the market through the lens of an ecosystem. So we could understand what are the ultimate goals of farmers and what are the things they go through along that journey to reach their goal, which is to sell their crop at the best possible rate at the time when the crop's ready to sell. For the brokers, right, they want to make the connection, make their commissions on it, and they want to find the right buyers and the right sellers and bring them together. And by finding a better way to do that, we were able to overcome some of those traditional issues. So that same thing occurs in larger organizations or more established organizations, probably a better way to put it, where they don't necessarily see what the issues are, and having that outside perspective, looking at it, as we say, from the outside in, walk a mile in the shoes of your customers, you can see some things that can be pretty surprising sometimes.
100%. And I think it's so important to have, a great team around you too. When you're a one-man show and you're just starting out, it can be tough. But to find those pain points, especially with other customers, and seeing out of them is really important. I want to touch on, building teams too. In your early days, scaling your company, how important was it for you to put the right people in place? How long did that take? And how that, in leadership style, how has that improved today?
Yeah. So I was running and gunning, learning as I went,
Mhm.
and I was moving so quickly that I had to hire people just almost immediately to fill roles and positions.
Yeah.
And I tend to be, and I still have this inclination, right? We all have our personality traits that some of us work very hard to change, and was being more of a control freak, trying to get my hands in on everything. And the reality is that, if you hire smart people, doing that actually causes more problems, no matter how, focused you think you are on paying attention to the details. Good people do much better when you give them, a framework within which to work and let them go ahead and do their thing. It doesn't mean you ignore it. It doesn't mean you don't pay attention, but it absolutely means you don't get in the middle of their everyday, business, because that just slows things down.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, nobody likes a micromanaged leader. So I think it's important.
As it turns out.
Yeah, and it's it's really common sense, even in corporate America. I think it's tough to really try to bring out the best in others, as a leader. But I think naturally those leadership skills are going to pay dividends long term, especially when you're growing a company. So, but I want to touch on your book a little bit. Change gears. Your upcoming book, Experience Rules. Can you, it sounds really fascinating. I was doing a little bit of research before we jumped on. Can you give us a sneak peek of, what the readers can expect, and, how it will help companies build a culture that customers and employees love?
Yeah, that's great. And that, Alex, as I think about, customer experience is obviously something, having been in it as long as I have, that I'm deeply passionate about. And being a customer myself, I'm deeply passionate about companies, getting it right for me. Um, but one of the things, we're talking about, whether it's an entire marketplace or an organization doing things because they've been done a certain way, not seeing where the opportunities might lie, and those opportunities are often lined up with pain points. It's it's because they don't have an approach or a system for looking at it afresh. And just give a couple examples. One of the keys of, actually, I'll take a quick step back. The subtitle of the book is The Experience Operating System and 8 Keys to Enable It. And when we think about operating system for experience, it's a full team sport. It's not just one or two people that get the experience right. If one or two people get the experience right, the entire experience can fall apart anyhow, because you've got have marketing making promises that sales can't back up, or you have sales making promises that service and support and the product can't back up. If you have those gaps, it makes it really hard for organizations to deliver the kinds of experiences consistently that customers want. So an operating system, as we've defined it, is something that essentially lays out a framework, a series of priorities, and things that organizations need to do to make those connections across their company, and to be able to make those connections with customers in ways that actually drive customers to behave in the ways that you want them to.
Mm-hmm.
And when you want customers to behave in ways that drive revenue, you want to make sure they do that more.
Exactly. And I think having, some type of blueprint in place too, and understanding, the MVPs and those non-negotiables from your customers, can really help drive that process forward. Do you, like write roadmaps, and like, how are you, planning out your, let's say, quarters? Is that like, how is that done internally? And can you just touch on that?
Yeah. There's essentially, when about whether it's experience or any other kind of strategically led framework for growth, it's important to recognize, and this is something I say a lot, there's 1,000 things that you need to do, 100 things you must do, and 10 you can, right? So the
Hmm.
challenge and the trick is looking at all these potential issues and figuring out, how do you get to that prioritization of those 10 things you actually have the ability to go and accomplish. And focus is a critical component, not just of experience improvement, but of planning in any organization. So We typically look at it with a 36 to, so a three roadmap. It's like, what can we do quickly to drive maximum impact? And what are the things we can start doing now? They're going to drive massive impact later. So we have essentially a framework that lets us deliver value quickly and set the stage for longer term value. And then about a 3-year plan, recognizing that every year or so you got to revisit, because 3 years is a really long time. All you can do is, that's why it's that 6 month where you really nail it down, and then you have a pretty good idea what you're going to do the next 6 months, and then you have much broader aspirational efforts beyond that, because you can only knock things out of the park in a fairly short period of time, because the world's changing around us pretty quickly.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So many different tools, so much going on in the marketplace, and I think, being able to pivot quickly and good to plan ahead, like you said, that 3-year plan is great, but yeah, there's so many things that could change, and you don't want to be left behind. So, but I want
Yeah,
to,
what's that?
touch on.
I think it's
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. I was gonna say, I think it's a Mike Tyson quote. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the nose. So
Yep, exactly. And that's the thing. You kind of have to almost, expect that things are going to go south, and kind of expect the worst. I always say, like, always plan for the worst. Ask yourself, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? And, any type of, business relationship you're getting into, whatever, any deal you're doing, plan for the worst. And that it's a negative approach, or it could be a positive, however you look at it.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I want to go
hope for the
off of.
best.
Yeah, hope for the best. But, I want to talk about, how AI, you talk a lot about that. That's really an intriguing topic. In today's marketplace, obviously, just, the customer experience, elaborating and utilizing AI. So can you talk about, what Gen AI is and how it's going to impact the way companies interact with their customers?
Yeah. So it's interesting, AI all up is something that customer experience professionals and customer listening professionals have been using for many years. Um, what generative AI has done, though, is a couple of things. First, it's brought broader attention, both from a business and a consumer perspective, to the power and the strength of AI. But from a day-to-day basis, as a business person, what AI does is give you the ability to radically speed the way that you analyze and review data, and to analyze and review a lot more of it. So even though AI has been used in varying ways to, for example, cull through call center recordings to pull out themes for customer issues and kind of categorize those themes, it took a lot of work, just from programming development and technical competencies. You don't need as much of that today. So generative AI, call it maybe a next gen AI almost as well, because it's been around for a while. But true generative AI is makes it a lot easier to do the things that need to be done, and that includes not just listening to customers, understanding them, which you can do by analyzing call center logs, as I was mentioning, or surveys, etc. But you can also deliver experiences in ways that are better aligned to what customers need. And just I'll give an example. You think about we'll call an omni-channel journey, where somebody has to go to your website, look at something, maybe they have a question or an issue, then they got to call you. And oftentimes that rep, traditionally that rep might not have a clear understanding of what it is you were just doing online. And so people typically jump out of an online buy cycle or service cycle when they don't get a question answered. What generative AI allows you to do is to essentially automate portions of the journey, so that when AI sees you doing something, they have the ability to actually change that journey in near real time. So they recognize that, if 100 customers have gotten here and they appear to be stuck, the thing we can give them to get them unstuck, or to make the experience more personalized or more relevant, or all those things, is here. And it just feeds it up, right? Shifts the pages they might have gone to, puts new options, alternatives in front of them, to allow your customers to continue down the path without having to jump out to other channels. And if they do jump to other channels, it gives the rep or the humans involved in the interaction the kind of information that they need to make smart decisions in the moment, and essentially help your customers proceed towards accomplishing their goals.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, the biggest thing too, and everything you said, I love, and also the speed and the efficiency. And I think by now, especially 2024, companies are going to have to learn how to adapt to it. And I think everybody, should look at it as a positive tool and try to learn it as much as possible, especially, with Gen AI, just all the innovations coming with that too. So definitely.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, it's a pretty interesting time to have a finger in the business world because
Mm.
it's both exciting and a lot of people are scared as well because it represents a huge change in many different areas. And if it's like a more of an existential angst as much as anything else. But there are risks, and as long as you're aware of those and keep your eye on them and don't let Gen AI just do it all by itself
Yeah.
without any human oversight, I think you'll be
Uh-huh.
okay.
Yeah, there has to be some type of continuous monitoring. And I think that's, with any industry, even with coding, like if you're a software developer, it can only do so much for you. So at least right now. So
Yeah, you got to
uh,
test the code.
exactly. Yep. But yeah, no, I wanna go, touch some more about, just entrepreneurship. What are, some advice that you could give to an inspiring entrepreneur that's, looking to create a company that truly, stands out from a customer experience standpoint?
Yeah, well, it's so one of the things that I do for is I teach. I'm a teaching fellow at UC Berkeley at the Haas Business School, specifically focused on entrepreneurship and innovation.
Hmm.
And customer experience, entrepreneurship, and innovation are actually very closely linked. I told a story about how I got started in this. It was really going to a market and discovering what customers needed, discovering what the market was lacking, discovering things that were driving everybody nuts, but nobody did anything about it.
Hmm.
And that's what entrepreneurs, in my experience and the advice that I give, is to really understand your customers and don't fall in love with your solutions. Oftentimes, I've worked, teams in class and startups that I consult with and mentor outside of a school environment. And it's really easy to get passionate about your solution, that you feel that solution is the solution. But if you're able to take that solution, present it, with an open mind to your customer base and take their feedback into account and kind of test it, iterate quickly, it is a fail fast environment, which is a good one.
Hmm.
But that also means that you need to listen to make that happen. And if I was to say one thing about just entrepreneurs in general, it's that tendency to focus on what the solution is. That being said, almost every entrepreneur startup that I've worked with that is successful has the ability to listen and pivot and do so quickly.
Yeah, and I think it's important to be able to, obviously, the speed and being able to pivot quickly, but also too, like being humble enough to, take advice from somebody that's in your same industry, that's proven success, finding that mentor, whoever that is. That I think a lot of younger business owners kind of don't take that direction. They want to figure it out by themselves, and then 3 4 years into, their experiment, it goes south quickly. So try to
Yeah.
lean on other
Yeah.
people.
Oh,
Yeah.
what was that? It goes south very slowly, then all at once.
Yep.
So,
That's true. Yep. But
yeah.
yeah, it's
There's,
obvious.
I was going to say, there's a concept that I kind of advise in any
Mhm.
industry, but startups in particular, analogs and antilogs. Like if you have an idea, look at companies that are highly successful, even just like a feature basis, or a product or category, and what do you want to pull and learn from those analogs? It's like, I want to be like
Yeah.
them, right? Because they really kill this thing. At the same
Yeah.
time, identify companies that are analogs that do not do things well. And you want to be
Hmm.
sure to avoid that. So you kind of build a map of, I want to thread
Hmm.
this particular path. Sorry, Alex.
Yeah. So, and that's brought to another question. So, in terms of like competitor analysis too, do you want to look at your competitors, at least weekly to see, the things they're doing good and bad? Is that something that you have done in your career?
I looked at and competitors, and you don't want to ignore competitors no matter
Hmm.
what. But if I was to prioritize time spent, I'd spend more time with customers,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And just kind of relatively speaking. And the
Hmm.
reason being is that if you know your customers better than anybody else and you act on that knowledge, no competitor is going to be able to take those customers from you because you're going to understand them better. You're going to deliver more relevant experiences, more relevant products and services. You're going to know what it is you need to innovate on. You can see around corners.
Hmm.
And frankly, most organizations don't spend the time needed to really, really get to know customers and those customers' needs.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like building a relationship. It takes time, and when you can, build that and then nurture it, it's going to go a long way. And then it's not as transactional. So,
Yeah, that's a really good point. I
mhm.
hadn't looked at it that way before, but you're absolutely right. It is. You're building a relationship, and you want to build a relationship that hopefully sticks for a long period of time.
Yep, 100%. Obviously, there's so many different misconceptions, just with implementing customer experience strategies. There's so many different ways you could do it. So can you just talk about, like what are some of those common mistakes that, people make, companies make with customer experience? How can businesses avoid falling into those traps in the future?
So a part of customer experience all up is around culture. And when we talk about culture, it's customer centric ways of thinking. Is everybody in the organization thinking about what your customers want and need, and customer centric ways of working? As a technologist, for example, are you making it easy for your people to serve your customers? Or kind of I was talking a few weeks ago to somebody who runs a call center, and they said their average rep has to interact with 6 systems to get the information about their customer. That just makes no sense. And it takes a long time. They don't have the ability, the authority to actually fix stuff. It's a huge pain, right?
Hmm.
So I'd say once you set a strategy, make sure that the organization's aligned on what that is, and that the people in your organization, and this, whether you're 2 people or 5 people or 30 people, it's everyone understanding what their role is in delivering against that strategy. You what does it mean, for example, if you're a warehouse worker versus somebody who's designing experiences, digital experiences for customers? Everyone's got a role. If the warehouse worker doesn't do their job right, then the wrong products can be shipped, or maybe the product will be faulty, or right, who knows? But everyone's got a role, and that's important to understand and how it translates.
Yeah, that's crazy. Six, you have as less touch points as possible throughout that customer journey, and I think it's crazy that even with all the technology and tools, you still hear stories like that. I in staffing and recruiting, I have my own recruiting agency, and like even just with applying for jobs and that application process too, how long 4 or 5 different interviews it takes. It's a lot of innovation that still could be done in different areas to
Yeah.
make the customer
Well,
experience better.
and that equals opportunity as business people, right?
Yep, 100%. But I want to talk a little bit more about just team building. That's really obviously scaling a company, building a brand. In today's digital eco space. So can you just talk about like how essential is it really to build a team? Maybe talk about how you've built and maintained high performing teams throughout your career. What advice would you give to somebody looking to build
Yeah.
build big teams?
There's 2 words that I use internally a lot, and we talk about these in our book Experience Rules as well, which is one of the 8 keys for actually enabling an operating system, an experience operating system specifically. But it's around alignment and accountability. And we talked about that, and I didn't use that word when we were talking a moment ago, but everyone being clear on what their role is, that's alignment. If the CEO says every experience we deliver is going to be highly personalized, well, then everyone needs to understand what that means. Maybe a highly personalized experience for someone in the warehouse means that the warehouse makes a call on, what little extra gift to drop into a package, or maybe they hand scribble a quick note to go in with something. If you're designing, website or digital experiences, then maybe personalization means that somebody has to get things served to them without having to log in. Again, whatever the roles are, and there's typically 3 roles in an organization. Broadly speaking, you've got people who interact with customers directly, like service reps or salespeople. You've got people who design and build and are responsible for delivering experiences, like web developers. And then you've got folks who are behind the scenes that don't actually interact with customers on a regular basis and aren't daily responsible for creating or delivering experiences. But everyone's role is equal. So that alignment portion of it, tied to individual roles appropriately, individual responsibilities appropriately, is critical. And the accountability side is important as well, because you can't just tell people, hey, you got to go do this. You have to make them understand what's in it for them. Why should they care? And they also need to understand what the downside is. if everyone else in the company gets it right and the warehouse guy put the wrong product in the box, or the product's broken or inoperable, whatever, the entire experience falls apart.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it's that alignment and accountability. Everyone knows where they're going. Everyone knows why it's important to get there.
It's like, yeah, that old saying, you're only as strong as your link. And
Yeah.
I think, yeah, as a business owner, you to understand what that link is, and try to grow and mentor and do whatever you possibly can to that up. Because at the end of the day, like you said, everything's just gonna topple down, and then it's a ripple
Yeah.
effect.
Yeah. I
But
mean, you think about it, and just that one thing creates all kinds of other problems, and how do you
mhm,
deal with returns and then individual cost, whatever your margins are, in most organizations I'm aware of, actually having to take a product back and redo it, put it back in inventory, get it fixed, all deal with the customer. I mean,
yeah,
you've lost your margin, plus maybe you're on the next 10 products, who knows, but there's
exactly.
real
Yep.
math, right?
Yep. Yep. I think it's so important to do the math, and like you said, like we said earlier, plan for the worst. And, if we have to return a product, if it breaks, let's put all this into our plan. And so we know exactly, worst case scenario, are we still going to be afloat? Are we still going to break even? Are we still going to hit our margins, our KPIs? So,
You got to squeeze efficiencies out while at the same
mhm,
time making sure that you're not doing so in a way that's going to diminish the quality of the experience your customers have. It's a
100%. Yep. Just with any business. Yep. But yeah, no, I want to, as we look ahead, let's say 5 years, the next 5 years, what do you think, Michael, are like the top digital customer experience trends that you believe are really going to shape the industry, and how can companies stay ahead of the curve?
I mean, I'd say, when I think about digital trends, some of the digital trends are not necessarily digital, but they're enabled by digital. But some of the specific digital trends, AI, VR, uh,
Hmm.
artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality,
Yeah.
all of those things are much more real on a damn near quarterly basis. The other trend that's really in early stages now is journey optimization, journey orchestration, and that's where you can use essentially digital tools and AI to define, understand what it is that customers need in the moment, and deliver optimized experiences to them as they're going through that experience. And again, we touched on that earlier, and that's a huge trend that I think, if companies get that right, it's going to be pretty fundamentally change the ways that they operate, and radically improve their business performance.
Hmm.
Um, the two things I think are critical to all up experience, but which are more and more enabled by digital technology, is personalization. Right? We hear a lot about personalization. Personalization does not mean getting someone's name right in an email. Right? Personalization means making
Yeah.
sure that you're actually talking to somebody with information that's relevant to them, and that relevant word, that's the
Hmm.
second thing, right? So personalizing based on who a customer actually is, not on who you wish they were or who you think they are. It's knowing, and again, you need to understand data, you need to understand customers, you understand how the data gives you insights that you can use to help your customers. But it's giving personalized information in the moment,
Hmm.
products, services, whatever that might be. And again, back to another part of our conversation, you do that right, your competitors aren't going to be able to touch you.
Yeah.
The second piece of it, which is related, is relevance. Years ago, I used to teach a class on direct marketing. And one of the things I asked, first class is a business school program. I said, okay, how many, think direct marketing is a good thing? Nobody's, direct marketing stinks. Everyone hates it. You get all kinds of crap in the mail. You don't want emails, everything else.
Hmm.
And I said, how many people have ever bought something because you were like mass marketed direct mail? Everyone's like, no. And I said, okay, so how many of you have ever bought something from an online marketplace or based on information you received about a product? Everybody raised their hand. I said, so it's not direct marketing if it's relevant to you and personalized to your needs. Then it
Hmm.
becomes something that you want because it's relevant. So understanding that mix is no longer spray and pray world. We got to get it right. And the more you get it right, the better you are at getting it right than your competitors, the faster you're going to scale, the faster you're going to win. And frankly, the more money you're going to make.
Hmm. Yep, 100%. I love that. And Yeah, it's because that was like the old school way, mailing, letters and things to people's doors. And now it's just so digitally the ecosystem with how we receive data and information. It's like even like, you go on Google and you're looking at, scarves, and you go on Facebook and you start seeing scarves. So it's like you're and everything is just all, being I wouldn't say manipulated, but it's definitely, being tracked, and it's yeah,
Yeah.
to find a way
But
to take advantage of that.
that's a great example though, right? It's companies trying to deliver personalized data to you in the moment. And what they don't get is
Exactly.
that you already bought that scarf. In fact, you bought 3 of them and you're done. You no longer need a scarf. You need something else. They're still trying to sell you a scarf.
Yep. Yep. Not relevant. It's not relevant anymore. Yep. Exactly. But no, I want to touch a little bit on your services. What are some of the big services that you guys offer? When companies and clients come to you, is it the journey mapping? How is that employee experience really like?
Yeah, we help companies in 3 broad areas. The first and probably the big of our business, or closer to half of it, is in actually improving experiences. Like maybe a company has a digital experience they need fixed. Maybe it's a particular interaction point, like billing, for example. So we'll come in, understand what the ecosystem looks like, figure out what customers actually want, and then improve experiences on an off basis. It might be an entire channel. It might be an individual touch point. And sometimes we get to invent new things as well, products and services that hadn't been thought of that solve problems that companies weren't aware of. The second thing that we do is broadly under the umbrella of customer listening and customer understanding. It's helping companies to listen to and measure the interactions they have with their customers, so they understand their customers better as individuals, as people. And that can be like, typical voice of the customer stuff, satisfaction surveys, but it goes a lot deeper than that as well, because that allows you to say, actually understanding that ecosystem, the kind of the mini cycle around what your customers are thinking and doing. It'll tell you exactly how a particular touch point affects how a customer feels, which changes their behavior, which drives your business results up or down as a result. Right. So if a customer feels badly because you interact with them in a way that wasn't personal, for example, then they're not going to buy. And that negative behavior impacts your top and bottom lines.
Yeah.
And then the third thing we do is we help companies actually set up internal customer experience capabilities. Designing customer experience departments and groups and figuring out what the systems are they need to put in place to make sure that on an ongoing basis, they're able to improve experience consistently. And that's really where the experience operating system came into play. It touches all those things that I just described, but really it's how do you embed customer centricity and the way that you can consistently, systematically, and scalably deliver great experiences. And that is really a systems-driven view of the world. And that is not simple, but it is straightforward.
Yeah, and I love, like the customer listening, the VOC program that you offer. I think that's so important because like what's what we really talked about this whole episode is measuring the metrics and making sure you have the correct data and it's relevant to your customers and to your company, and you're ultimately, getting that ROI. So
Yeah.
but yeah, so I want to, just I have some rapid fire questions. So I want to give you a few, and then they're nothing tough, and then I want to leave some time for you to any closing remarks. So the
Great.
first one is, what do you feel are the key attributes of a successful entrepreneur?
Open ears. I mean,
Gotcha.
simply put, and linked to that, the ability to prioritize. Thing I see a lot of entrepreneurs, getting in trouble with is trying to do 50 things when they have time to do 3.
Yeah. Find out the most important thing first, tack that, and then move on. I love it.
Yeah. There's a phrase, we call it the critical inch, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
do this one thing, what is the next one thing you must do? Then do that. And then focus on the next thing instead of trying to do all of it. Human nature, right? It's like, I'm going to do
Yep.
it all. But
Yep. We get happy feet sometimes as business owners. What's something in business that people think is really important, but is not that valuable in today's age?
oh, that's a good one. So this may be controversial, but many can look at like the measurement side, customer satisfaction all up as being the be all end, or maybe it's net promoter score, kind of loyalty score. They take that one score and they look at it and say, we're doing well, we're doing poorly. But if you don't break that down and understand what are the specific things that are causing that score to move in all different parts of your business, it's just a number. Mm-hmm. I used to say that NPS, CSAT, they're great if you understand how you got there. Otherwise, it's like getting dropped into the desert at a crossroads. And you see there's a sign that says, here's where you are, but you have no idea where you're going. You have no idea how you got there. So you're stuck in the desert.
Definitely. And then you're long road up from there. So,
long road. Indeed.
Yep. What is the best advice that you've ever received from a mentor, family member, coach about just business that helped you scale your companies to where you're at today?
Yeah. So this probably won't surprise you given some of my comments, but it's focus.
Yeah.
Find the one thing that you got to do and focus on doing that thing. And if you do that thing really, really well, you do better than somebody else, then your chances of succeeding, not guaranteed, but they're a lot better.
Love it. Love it. Just put your head down and grind with the new, trendy word, grind as hard as you can. Yep.
Yeah. I don't actually love the grind word. I like playing too much.
Yeah.
And you can do both. It's the beauty about focusing, right? If you know what you have to focus on, then you have, one of the things is it gives you the luxury of taking time off to do things you really enjoy doing because you know you're doing the most important things. Otherwise, you feel like you're always behind, and that's not a good feeling.
Exactly. Yep. Last question. What are the top 3 tips that you want to leave our audience and your audience with today, just about business, marketing experience? What are those 3 tips?
Yep. Say, listen to your customer, take action on what you learn, and don't be afraid of failing as long as you learn from that failure.
Yeah. And I think, the quicker you can fail, if you're going to fail, you do it quick, instead of waiting, 3-4 years in, and then you realize, oh man, I wish we would have just, pivoted a lot quicker and, tested more things out. Squeeze.
It's remarkable. A friend of mine wrote a book a few years ago called The Other F Word, and it's about failure. And he brings up the analogy in the book that, in engineering, engineers study failure constantly.
Yeah.
Because they need to know what caused this to fail. But so it doesn't look at obviously as a great thing, but if you know what caused it to fail, then you know how to fix it next time, make sure it doesn't happen again. And in business, broadly, failure is looked at as a negative. Failing is bad. You hear there's a lot about fail fast, fail forward, but there's still something attached to failure, like in our society today. And if you could look at it through the lens of an engineer, it's like, okay, I'm going to learn everything from this that I possibly can, and it's going to be okay. And you give your people that flexibility as well. People aren't going to fail all the time, but they're going to get smarter and smarter when they do.
Yeah, they'll learn a lot quicker, and they don't feel that pressure too. Like they're going to be called into the boss's office, or they're going to be disciplined for failing. It's more of a collaborative team effort, and other departments or other individuals can learn from other failures too.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. Well, is there any, shout outs? Where can we find you, Michael? Any last remarks you want to make before we close out?
Yeah. So mcorp.cx is our website. So come by, check it out if you have any questions. Our book's going to be out in about a month, late February, Experience Rules, available, of course, Amazon and everywhere. And Alex, just want to say thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've enjoyed our chat.
Yeah, no, it's been an honor to have you, and we'll definitely put the link to your book, when this goes live. So really excited to, see your journey this year, see your company grow more. And I know I took a lot of notes. I'm sure our audience did as well. So thank you for being here, Michael.
Great. A pleasure.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot, Alex.
Yep, you as well. Well, this is another edition of Scaling Secrets podcast. Till next time, guys. There we go. We're off. Awesome.